Okay, magandang hapon sa inyo lahat. Live po tayo sa Channel 4. Okay. At Radyo ng Bayan. Nakatingin si Marie. Sino na magtatanong?
Sino?
Statement muna, Mr. President.
No, wala. Let's go to
Okay.
questions.
First
They have a
question.
session.
Aw.
Ay, microphone.
RP.
The RP bill was included, and also the measure on taxes on sin products. May we just have an explanation on that, sir? Why did you decide to include that finally, yung RH bill, sir?
Yeah, we have promised that this is, we have to address that situation that prompted di ba, the proponents to push for the responsible parenthood bill. So it was really just a question of fine-tuning the measure. The executive proposed certain amendments to the proposed measures, no, to clarify and to put in siguro the concerns of other stakeholders. So that was discussed, and I think there was a very good discussion on it, and it will be pati yung workings of the debates. No? I think we had agreements, number one, to have an airing of all of the ideas, and also a subsequent agreement to not parang practice dilatory tactics, that you will continue revisiting issues that had already been tackled. So I think we were very productive in that aspect. No? Yung sa syntaxes, there are a lot of details that will have to be worked out. Amongst the issues are, the valuation was based on 1996 figures, and we're already 2011. The figures are not relevant. You also want to simplify the process of collecting the taxes. Yung methods of production, for instance, of liquor is an issue. May WTO concerns rin. So this will all be tackled by the various committees in charge of reviewing the syntaxes. And in view of that, is to earmark the same, yung increased revenues, or the revenues will be earmarked for funding the universal health care.
Just a follow-up, sir. How will the proposal on charter change fit into your agenda, sir, given that you have said that this would not be a priority under your administration?
I think we just tackled that on a peripheral basis. There were slight discussions on the economic provisions of the Constitution. That is not yet ready for, as they say, for prime time. No? We still have to discuss the particular details. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon po. Celerina from Manila Shimbun. Sir, I'm just wondering, were you able to get any commitment from both houses that those priority measures will be passed? And what could be the time frame for those measures to be passed?
I will have to base it on the historical record. And the measures that we proposed, there were several already that they have passed. No? From our request, yung GOCC governance, yung the discrimination against women, sa night work, and others. So given that track record already, I'm sure that the legislature, on items like, for instance, yung amendments to the Human Security Act, Final Forest Limits Act, yung Forest Limits Act basically parang defines what actually constitutes the forest of the Philippines. So, it's very difficult to conserve that which you have actually not yet defined. Yung amendments to the Consumer Protection Act, data privacy, reorganizing, strengthening our statistical system, yung anti-pilferage of risk reduction and preparedness equipment, the Kasambahay Bill, yung coverage of the Science and Technology Scholarship Program, amendments to the Urban Development and Housing Act, and yung Responsible Parenthood Bill will all be prioritized, and we expect expeditious action on the same.
Are we expecting the passage within the year of those measures that you have mentioned?
A lot of them are already in the parang advanced stage, nasa third reading na. So I cannot syempre speak for the co-equal branch, but ulitin ko lang, I assume that by the next SONA, we will be reporting a lot of this as already actual laws in the country.
Christina Bindaño, Inquirer.
Sir, how will you, based on the discussions kanina, how will you make yung RH bill acceptable to the church? The RP bill, sir, acceptable to the church?
But there will be certain segments that view anything that talks about artificial means of para responsible parenthood as anathema to their beliefs. So they will not be satisfied with it. But we have tried to remove certain issues that can be contentious. For instance, there was a provision that we were informed by Congressman Aguman have already been deleted. Yung ideal family size was defined as 2 children. That will be deleted. Yung age-appropriate sex education, we propose that we increase it from grade 5 to grade 6 up to high school. No? And that was, I think they agreed also that that will be, you're trying to reconcile two things. There is a condition where, hindi ko maalala, sorry, yung scientific term, pero the start of menstruation in women already, menarche, starts age 9 or 10. Yung grade 6 is about 11. Yung certain members of the church were proposing age 12. So we think yung 11 is a good compromise that will meet the requirements of people from the church and also those who are saying that at 9 or 10 years old, there's some already that are at risk of having unwanted pregnancy. So the need to educate them. There is a provision that says that parents can opt not to have it in a formal setting but do it by themselves is also recognized. Yung hospitals, the provision that says all hospitals have to provide artificial. If they are conscientious objectors, then they will be allowed to, that provision I think will be modified so that it recognizes that those that are church-based hospitals can practice their faith in recognition of freedom of religion enshrined under Article 3 of the Constitution. So the proponents have already agreed to the same measure, parang that particular provision being modified na hindi all, and so on and so forth. So there were not less than, I think, 10 that we proposed as amendments that they have, in effect, it will go through the process, plenary hall debates, but I think we're in agreement that can really fine-tune and improve the proposed measure.
But there would still be a provision on the access to yung mga contraceptives and natural and
Yes.
artificial.
Yes.
It's still
But
going to be there.
Nandun, that hasn't been removed. But there is also, thank you for asking that, no? Yung natural family planning method, we made it very specific that there will also be funding support for yung teaching, guiding as to the natural family planning methods. In fact, parang the values formation also will be sensitive to the religious affiliations that citizens belong to. So values formation will have inputs from the religious sector also.
So, sir,
If not, if they don't even run it. No.
so free yung contraceptives in distribution, it's going to be free for the public.
Yung based on the law, yung certain requirements within the law.
Oh, okay. So if you're going to sum it up, then this version, yung the one the palace will support and Congress will be parang it's a compromised bill. It will include yung sa church. It will be acceptable.
Mali naman
to the
yata yung
church.
compromise, para bang watered down by everybody. There are certain provisions that upon reflection are not necessary to achieve the desired aims. And that is what we tried to achieve with a consensus building process with the legislature. Hence, it fulfills the mandate of LEDAC.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Another question? Mia, bago dito.
Sino?
Mia Gonzalez.
Mia.
Hi, sir. Sir, how much revenues do we expect to generate from the sin taxes? Were there any figures mentioned?
If I remember correctly, and please don't hold me to this, pero vaguely about 60 billion yata. Of course, yung sin products are elastic, meaning yung price determines volumes determine revenues. So that is there are certain assumptions that will mandate a figure. Parang various figures will be presented depending on the assumptions. Just to emphasize, pag elastic, syempre, pag mas mahal, mas konti yung gagamit.
Sir, sorry. Sir, yung 60 billion, minimum ba yun?
Yung depende, again, sa assumptions. You have different assumptions, then different yung figure. So it's a whole range, and I'm sorry I don't have the range that was said. No? It's at, I think, about 30 right now. So tingin nila magiging 60. But based on specific assumptions.
Okay, Joyce Banyares, Standard.
Yes.
Sir, good afternoon. Sir, may we know kung ano yung amendments that were proposed to the Human Security Act?
There is one provision, for instance, that talks about you have to inform the person about to be surveilled, yung suspected terrorist, that he is the subject of surveillance. So, di ba? Para mo mahuhuli kung abisuan mo siyang itago mo yung binabantayan ka namin. Parang sinabi mo na itago mo. The other is, there is a penalty pag yung, later on, you went through the whole process, na-absuelto yung suspected. May penalty, na-detain, may penalty of 500,000 pesos per day. So, yung law enforcement entity, kakabahan na hulihin maski sino, maski na matibay yung ebidensya, mukhang maraming intelligence na nagsasabing dapat bantayin talaga to. At sino naman ang gusto mamulta ng kalahati milyon kada araw. So ginawa natin, may multa na kalahati milyon, pero for the totality na. Okay, parang minsan na hindi, kung isang buwan na kulong yung tao, imagine magkano yung babayaran nitong law enforcement entity na to. Those are, meron pa yung sa conditions sa, I think we just changed the word "and" kasi in two conditions to that constitute a terrorist act. You will replace the article "and" to "or". So, parang either or of the conditions present, pwede na to be an object or subject of interest under the Human Securities Act.
Okay, Marie Ruiz, Radyo ng Bayan.
For House Speaker and the Senate President. Sir, do we expect smooth sailing in the House and Senate for these Malacanang priority bills? Both of you, sir.
Do you expect smooth sailing raw po for smooth sailing for the passage of the priority bills?
You know, in the case of, I will cite in the case of the RH bill, I think we cannot assure that we will pass that in a very short period. It will take a full-blown debate in the Senate. In some of these proposals of the President, I think we will have to look at them very closely because, well, in the case of the anti-terrorism bill, I agree with the proposal of the President to amend because I do not remember that I put in my original version that the person to be surveilled ought to be notified first. And second, in the case of that penalty of 500,000 per day, that was not in my version. It was insisted by some members of the Senate at the time, and that was pushed through in the bicameral conference committee. And I agree that that more or less impedes the effective use of the measure toward terrorism in the country. And we will hasten to approve that. But the others, I would like to inform the public that we will look at them very closely. But we will give every bill a fair hearing and pass them as soon as possible once we have studied.
House Speaker.
Well,
Thank you, sir.
let me just say, that for instance, in the first set of bills prioritized by the LEDAC in its first meeting, there were 22 bills, and 14 are in the House either approved already and become law, 3 of them. Several have been approved on third reading or second reading, and in fact, they are on the verge of being approved. So, in other words, we should be able to give the same attention to this new set of laws proposed by regarded as priority by the President. Some of them are highly contentious, and of course, already pending in the House. And the thing, for instance, in the case of the RP bill, the President made a statement that perhaps we do not have to keep on repeating the same answer, the same questions to get back the same answers and so forth. And I think all of us are more or less in agreement with that. So, insofar as the House is concerned, we will continue what we have always advocated, which is to let's have everybody, every aspect of the law discussed, but let's let it reach the point where we actually vote on it. so that we do not add just another year to the 14 or 15 years that this whole thing has been pending.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, huling dalawang tanong. Unahan si Raymond Tinasa ng Bombo Radio.
Sir, good afternoon, Mr. President. Sir, doon lang po sa Freedom on Information Bill, ano po yung naging kadahilanan natin kung bakit hindi nisama yun sa discussions on LEDAC?
Yung marami pong detalye na hindi pa natalakay doon sa imongkahe. No? Hindi pa, may technical working group tayo under Undersecretary Manolo Quezon who has been tasked to deal with both chambers, various NGOs, other stakeholders. I'll give you a specific example. Yung, sabi ko, ano bang normal na dapat exempted? National security concerns, yung those of a diplomatic nature, di ba? So, masasaklaw ba doon, for instance, pag pinag-aaralan ng DPWH yung right-of-way, yung alignment? So, pag yung kailangan ba sabihin ng DPWH right-of-way, saan nila idadaan yung highway, na kung saan magtataasan yung presyo nung, di ba, pag nalaman ng publiko, magkakaroon ng speculation dyan, patataasin mo yung gastusin ng gobyerno para maitayo yung highway na yan. Pwede kayang pagkatapos ng nabili lahat ng mga lupa, doon mo na sabihin na i-announce na ito ang alignment. So, yung details ang pumapatay. No? So, nag-agree tayo ngayon na lalo closer yung, baka may formal working committee from the Senate, from the House, and other stakeholders to come up and try to answer all of the details. Or to come up with a general principle that will not make governance that much harder. May sympathy from the legislature na ang hirap nga talagang, yung iba kasi mo kaya habang iniisip mo pa lang, kailangan isiwalat mo na. So, pwede ba yun? So, ulitin ko lang, yung pag alam natin kunyari sa kidnapping, may mga ina-hire na mga tao mag-spotter. Sa bangko, yung unscrupulous, tuturo lang kung sino yung kliyente, marami dine-deposito. Dito ba, baka hindi pwede yung bank secrecy, papasok o ngayon. Paano kung yung listahan ng mga ari-arian niya? Pwede bang i-access sa freedom of information? So, saan ba yung karapatan ng isa na hindi naman mababawasan yung karapatan ng iba? Yung lahat ng detalye ang umiipit sa atin kung paano maglalabas ng mungkahe na kung pwede masaklaw na lahat ng contingencies para hindi naman pahirapan ng Estado, hindi naman makasira sa interes ng bayan, yung pagkakaroon nitong karapatan na magkaroon ng impormasyon. Kanina nga biniro ko, sabi ko, kasi nakalagay doon sa batas, where public interest, no? Sabi ko, pag tinagalo ko kasi, yung public interest, nagiging interesado yung publiko, which is not necessarily the same thing. Di ba? Kunyari, parating niyo ako dati tinatanong sa love life ko, wala naman siguro public interest doon. Pero, yun, parang joke na lang yung aspect na yun. But still, I think you have to recognize na kung hindi natin ilalagay yung mga contingencies like, yung ano bang saklaw nito, talaga pwede ngang gumagangyari sitwasyon na lalo makasama sa estado ng bansa kaysa makapaganda. Dito ko, I think very good example yung ngayon. Pag pinaplano pa lang, kanya nag-final decision ng DPWH, ito alignment. No? Bago niya inumpisahan bilhin o kung dumaan tayo sa expropriation proceedings, lahat ng tatamaan nun, gagawa na ng paraan para mataas yung value ng lupa nila or magkaroon ng speculation. Nangyayari na yan doon sa pag-clear nung lahat ng mga bahay sa Riles. No? Parang, ang dami siguro example sa mapapakita mo, ilan na nagpalitan ng pag-aari bago itinayo yung infrastruktura, lalong dumagdag yung gastos. Sino nakinabang doon?
But in any way, we can still expect the passage of this bill under your watch.
Well, I'm hoping, no? And dependent on how kasi it is dependent on the working of that group, no? That tries to encompass all stakeholders. Pero yung sana naman recognize natin na even in the absence of that, ang dami ng mga batas na nagbibigay ng laman doon sa transparency. Yung sa procurement law na lang, o yung e-procurement, liwaliwanag doon. Di ba? Kung gusto mo malaman lahat ng transaksyon ng gobyerno, doon ka pupunta, malalaman mo na. And in our practice, I don't think any of you can say that we've withheld any information on practically any matter. So, kung wala man sa batas, we have been practicing it. So, sabi ng iba, pagkatapos mo, paano namin masisigurado yung karapatan? Pero, sabi nga niya, okay yung, may freedom of speech ka, for instance. Pero yung freedom of speech mo does not authorize you to create panic and scandal. Pagpunta ka sa Senado, nagsabi ka, may sunog and all of that, may penalties yun. So, we're trying to do the same with freedom of information, define No? Ano ba yung hangganan? Karapatan mo, karapatan ng iba.
Sir, last point on my end. Sir, ano pong nangyari dun sa proposal naman ni Secretary Coloma on the amendment on the PTB4?
Siguro maraming nahihirapan kasing i-visualize kung anong pwede mangyari sa Channel 4. Aminin ko, pati ako. Sabi ko, paano ba ito hindi magiging bottomless pit? Yung bang walang manunood, talagang parating lugi, etc. Pero lumalabas ka dito, amendment sa charter na, for instance, to allow them to take ads can increase the revenue generating capacities. Yung pag naging digital tayo, sa frequency allocated sa kanila, pwede yung, ano ba yung term, parang pwede i-split. Magkakaroon ng 2 additional channels that can be turned into commercial entities. Merong mga kayang gawin yung PTV4 na baka hindi pwedeng talakayin ng other news organizations, for instance. Kunyari, pag pinaliwanag mo, ano ba yung disaster risk in a particular area, they can devote a whole program to explaining, di ba, ano ba yung effect ng landslides, et cetera, that cannot be handled by the others. Yung permanenteng weather portion, or yung weather, hindi mo i-report lang yung developments, pero ipapaliwanag mo ano bang ibig sabihin ng low pressure area, ano bang ibig sabihin ng high pressure area, saan ba ang prevailing wind patterns dito sa bansa, saan pupunta yung bagyo, can be tackled by Channel 4. In short, yung what we agreed upon was gumawa ng parang presentation, yung kumbaga sa ad, para storyboard. No? So, may storyboard kung anong pwede mangyari sa PTV4, pipresenta namin sa legislature, baka sumang-ayon sila doon sa mungkahin namin na merong service na pwedeng ibigay yung PTV4 na makakatulong talaga sa bansa na worthwhile pondohan. Kanina binanggit for instance, Senator Cayetano, magkano ba para gumawa ng classrooms at saka yung mag-hire ng mga teachers na magtuturo dyan? Ano ba yung mga subjects na pwedeng gawing, i-obliga mo na estudyante, manood ka ng Channel 4, minsanan ibo-broadcast to everybody. Yung network coverage ng Channel 4 kasi in terms of studios, marami lang ang hindi operating, is the most extensive. Hindi kaya tapatan, or hindi tinatapatan ng all of the other commercial stations. So, sayang yung asset na yan. Kaya tulad ng siguro example, yung ka-tsunami sa Japan, in roughly we had 4 hours to react, and we were able to react together with the cooperation of the vast media. But if this were really a viable and ongoing concern, na talagang mapupuntahan mo kaagad-agaran, ready to disseminate the information of that the state wants to disseminate, baka mas mabilis ang nangyaring action. At saka pwedeng localized. No? Yung, in effect, parang sila yung kinukuhanan. May provision kasi sa basas, kailangan silang kumuha ng feed from Channel 4 also, if I remember correctly. So that is, there are certain advantages that we can utilize. Question lang is, magkano ba yan? Yung currently, pag sinara natin ang Channel 4, it will cost us about 830 million. Okay. To keep it going, at least for 1 year, yung test run, yung bibigyan mo ng equipment, new personnel, parang gawin mo naman na mas modern ng konti, about 360, less than half. No. So, pero again, we have to convince those who are authorized to appropriate money for us that ito yung tamang ruta.
Mr. President, may isa pong pahabol si Mia Gonzalez. Okay lang po ba?
Pwede. Happy New Year.
Sir, would you like to see the passage of the proposal on sin taxes to be passed first, considering that there are developments happening in the United States and Europe to further prepare the economy?
I'm sorry, May, I didn't get the question.
Sir, I'm asking whether among the priority measures presented by the executive in LEDA, would you prefer that the measure on sin taxes be passed first, considering that the Philippines is facing certain challenges because of what's happening in the US and Europe?
Nakikita naman natin yung ating mga kasamahan sa both sa Senado at sa Kongreso na responsible and as educated and as informed as we are. And we proposed all of these measures because we really believe that they are needed to run this country better. So I'm sure that in the conscientious fulfillment of their duties and obligations, they will expedite the passage of measures that they have already agreed with. And hopefully, yung dito sa sin taxes, wala naman nagko-question do sa ultimate aim nito. Di ba? Bawasan natin yung consumption of the sin products. Tapos yung earmark na rin natin yung revenue for curing those that fall ill for participating in all of, indulging rather in all of the sin products. Ngayon, question is, how do you do it? There are various methods of doing it. So, magkukumbinsiya tayo, and that is the basis and essence of the democracy, di ba? My idea, their idea, we combine the ideas, we come up with a better idea than what each party proposed to begin with. So, we're trying to achieve the best, given our limitations, given our constraints. Okay?
Okay. Huling tanong.
Meron pa, Mia?
Sorry. Sir, but would you agree that this would better prepare the country for whatever fallout the U.S. may have?
It does help, no? Any increase in revenue does help our condition.
Okay. Huling tanong mula kay Weng de la Fuente ng Net25.
Good
Ibang
afternoon,
issue,
sir.
sir?
Sir, on Syria, how concerned is the government with the situation po in Syria? And are we gearing up for forced evacuation of our Filipinos there?
I've just been in touch with the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. They have told me that they've raised the alert level to 3. Kasi dati 3 in selected cities. Now it's 3 for the entire country of Syria. There is a quick response team already deployed. I don't remember exactly since when, no? The same with Libya. Meron na rin quick response team doon. There are contingency plans that are actually being implemented already. Amongst them, syempre, getting the necessary vehicles to move them out. Ang problema natin sa Syria in particular, and that's why he's really looking at it very intensely, is we have something like 17,000 of our compatriots there. And 95% of them are domestic helpers. So, ang assumption doon is they are not, apparently they don't possess the ability as readily as professionals to take care of themselves. Unfortunately, yung pagkaintindi ko, konti ang tumanggap ng alok natin para ma-repatriate from the beginning. No? So, I assume that most of the 17,000 are still there. Pero again, there is enough information to make us worry, or parang enough information, in certain instances, masyadong kulang na information na in-expand yung coverage yung 3 from just the cities to other areas.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
Speaker Belmonte and Senate President Enrique. Thank you, Malacanang Press Corps.